We're gonna do a little video on rods for bait fishing in Long Island Sound, where we're gonna be fishing some depths that are like 40, 80 feet or more. We're gonna want to go with a medium heavy rod. I've shown this before. I got it in the class in the video. It doesn't matter what brand or anything, but I'm tending to go with a conventional reel. Fished. All right, so it's you know, you don't want to be, you know, somebody that's like people are making fun of, a little Guggen out there or a newbie. This rod is fished this way, while a spinning reel is going to be fished with a reel down below, and you're going to be using your dominant hand to. This is something that, like, when I taught the class, I did the video, I misspoke about. With a spinning rod, you're fighting with your dominant arm and reeling with your non-dominant arm. I'm right-handed, and so this arm with a conventional reel is going to be activating that lever to unspool line as we're like going down, as we're drifting, and we want our bait, we want our lead to be tapping bottom, literally tapping bottom along, and then it's like, oh, there's a drop off. I'm gonna need to quickly let out more line and let that go. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Now I feel bottom again. Having a conventional reel, I don't need to flip a bail like on a spinning rod. When we are working rocky piles, we're gonna want a rod like this. Can you get away with a bait caster? Yes and no. For the most part, no, because it can't handle these heavy weights. A bait caster is a lighter setup, fine for shallow water fluke and stuff like that, but not for deeper fishing like we're doing. Again, this is like the shores off of Connecticut, the rocky reefs and everything. That, I mean, honestly, where the action's down at 80 feet or so, or even more. So, right, you are fighting, you know, fighting with your non-dominant arm, and you are reeling with, you know, with your dominant hand, also with this on the ready to go. I tend to just like keep this here, and when I'm fishing, my hand never goes past this. This handle on here is meant to tell you where to keep your hand, not that you ever put your hand further up while you're lifting a fish out. That's called high sticking. If you do that with any one of your rods, what happens is you're creating a fulcrum point right wherever your hand is, and the rod can't bend all the way through down to the butt. It bends right to where your hand is, and it's going to put more pressure on, and you'll snap a tip off. Or worse, something unrepairable, where maybe you're not just losing a tip, but you're losing down here and you're destroying the rest of the action of your rod. Well, I got you here at the tip of the rod here. I want you to see that with just by, again, my hand is all the way down on the handle. I'm just going to anchor it on the floor to show that when my hand is here and I press down, it's not bending very much. This is a good stiff rod right there, but it does have a pliable tip. Does have it in a, you know, and it gives an arc. What this is telling me is that this is a solid rod for handling heavy weights. Like, this is a 10-ounce bank sinker. That's like an everyday use size right there. 10 ounces. It's heavy. All right, or past a half a pound. But that pliable tip means that as this sinker is bouncing around on the bottom, hitting one rock and another, and hitting sand and all that, I can feel right down through the rod what type of bottom I'm on. I can feel that it's a hard bottom and that we're on rocky structure. I can feel, oh, we've just gone to a soft muddy bottom or a sandy bottom, because I can feel that through the tip all the way down to my hands as I'm just going along with the drift. All right, so the rod's not down here. Rod tends to be tucked up under my arm so that this release, you know, to unspool it is easily accessible, and also my hand's right there. And so yeah, we're jigging and stuff. So my hand might go here if I don't need to, and I might one arm it. I might double arm it with two rods. That's a lot. I've done it when I feel like, I don't know, nobody's watching, I'm gonna do this, but that's stupid. Here's the thing, this one's got a level winder on it. You want a reel that's got, so you tend to buy rod and reel separate. All right, so this is about a $65, $70. You add in shipping, it's gonna be about, let's just say $80, because they gotta put this in a tube and they gotta ship the rod from, online or whatever. Or go support your local tackle shop. My first one that I bought was at Hilliers tackle shop. right after I won the pool on the Black Hawk. I took that money, flipped it into my first rod, which was this exact setup. I loved it. And I love it so much that I bought 5 more for when friends come on the boat, or for when a tip snaps off. You know, I've always got them. It's got this little star drag on it. All right. I tend to set my drag so that, like, just in general, I tend to set it that if I am pulling, so this one's hammered down. I want to be able to pull a little bit out. That's what I tend to have the drag out, is that by hand, without cutting my hand with this braid, I can pull it out. Now, what's it loaded with? What's it spooled up with? Well, first there is a heavy layer of 50-pound mono that fills up the spool, and probably fills it up about halfway. Now, this one is one where the spool isn't completely full. This is an end of the season kind of deal where we've probably broken off, lost a few hundred yards here, as people snag up on the bottoms. But so let's get back to it. The spool is kind of like half loaded with 50-pound mono as a filler. And then, okay, so here's the trick of like what I do, is that I take a piece, it doesn't matter. I usually use Scotch tape, the clear stuff, but this is all I got in my hand at this desk. I take a piece of tape over wherever the knot is, joining the braid to that mono base. So I do a uni to uni knot. You could do an Alberto knot, you could do an FG knot to tie the braid to the monofilament that you have in there. Doesn't matter. No matter what, you're going to get a knot there that is going to create a rough spot. And what I like to do is just kind of smooth over it, and I put a little bit of tape over that. And if I'm fishing and that knot comes out, it just eats right through the tape. That's no problem. In general, that knot never comes out unless we've had a day where we've lost a lot of gear. We've lost 80 feet. We've lost multiple rigs and had to snap off and restart. That'll burn through the line. And those are rare days. But there's a point where, like, oh, you snapped off a few times one trip, snapped off a few times another trip, you handed the rod off to somebody, they snapped off a whole bunch of times. There's a point where you get to that tape and you get to that union of the mono and the braid, and it's like, okay, let's set that rod aside, let's grab another rod on the boat and start fishing with that one. This one needs to be re-spooled. And so I tend to put about 300 yards, 300 meters or yards, it's about the same, all right, on the spool of braid. Now, the braid that I'm using, we are in a wonderful time where the knockoffs, the generic brands, they are pretty damn good. I don't even know what brand this is. It's not Shimano. It's nothing special. It's not Berkeley. This is just off Amazon. This is, what is this one? 40 pound braid. And here you can see the colors. It spools off, and it'll be blue for 10 yards, for 30 feet. It'll be yellow for another 30 feet, for another 10 yards, 10 meters. It'll be pink. And so here's the thing, as I'm spooling this up, I'm literally counting colors. And if I want at least 100 yards or 100 meters, and each color is 10, I'm going to want to count 10 colors going by, and it's going to repeat through the colors. So as I'm spooling this on, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Okay. It takes longer than that, and I get to 10 colors, and then I go, okay, maybe a couple more just in case. And I get my count on. The nice thing is that when you're dropping, and you're seeing a couple colors go out, you can see about the difference in the depths that you're fishing. We are fishing in depths where the color of the line doesn't matter. It's not going to spook the fish. They're not going to see it. What we want, though, is we want braid that's going to slice and cut through the water and have very little resistance. So another hack is that when you are spooling this, all right, so I tend to leave this in the box that it's in, and there we go. Find a pencil, shove it through the center of that spool, so that as I'm unwinding this through all the guides, I tuck this between my feet. between my feet so it doesn't go flopping all over the ground. I tuck it between my feet and I use the rod and the reel, and I reel this and unspool it, unroll it from this. If we were to unroll it the other way, take the whole spool, I got an illustration for this one, but it's nothing crazy. If I were to unspool it like this, I'm gonna add line twist in this line. I'm gonna get some freaking pain in the ass knots. This is a brand new spool. I'm gonna get some pain in the ass knots, like wind knot type of stuff. No, you want to unroll it from this and have it rolling off the spool. So there you go. Now they make like tools for this and stuff. Pencil through a box. Keep the box, put a pencil through it, you're all set. Now another thing is when I'm reeling it in, I don't have one around me. Yeah, I do. Paper towel. While I'm reeling this in, and I'm counting that braid, and the mono, whenever I'm reeling anything and loading it on the spool for the first time before I'm going fishing, I am going to grip onto that, hold my hand up high, so that it spools back and forth properly. If I hold it down here, I might have it load too much on the one side of the spool or the other. So I hold my hand all the way up here. We're not fighting a fish. It's okay to hold this all the way up here. And I'm going to pinch and load this with tension, with pressure as I'm spooling it. Now, if I didn't do that, and the whole thing was loaded loosely, just loosely right off the spool onto here without tension, then the first snag, the first fish I catch, the line that gets tight would wrap around all those loose layers and embed itself, and you would have quite a snag in here. Okay, yeah. So that's, it's like, did I hit everything? Okay, at the end of this, so I've loaded braid, and I've loaded mono most of the way, and then I've loaded braid to make sure I get my at least 100 yards on here. And again, the wider you load this, the more full it is, the more distance you're going to be pulling in every crank. That's why you put that like monofilament base in there. You don't want to load all this very thin stuff on a very thin arbor down there, and have to wind in so many times. You are doing yourself a favor by thickening and fattening this up with that mono base, so that every time you reel in, you're pulling in more line. It's a math thing. It's circumference, man. The circumference of the circle is bigger, so you're pulling in more inches per reel. Now, at the end of this, I used to use a barrel swivel with a snap at the end, and I liked having the swivel on there, but sometimes the snap would come undone, or I say it would come undone. No, sometimes the idiot would forget to close the snap when I hooked on a rig. What have I switched to? I've switched to an angler clip. All right, so you can look these up. This one's kind of like a medium size. It's just about an inch big. All right, and it's big enough that it's not going to go through the guide, and so one way of storing this is I just reel up so that is just gently touching that guide. Remember, these the eyes on those guides are ceramic, and they can break and slice right through your line, and then you have to replace the whole tip. Anyway, metal and ceramic don't always mix, so be careful that you're not winding this in really tight. But it's also big enough that it's not going to go through the eye. All right. Loading on and hooking on. Let's say I'm fishing and I got a three-way rig. All right, and so I'm gonna be taking that big old 10-ounce weight, and I'm gonna be putting it in that size 1 duo lock snap like that. See how quick that was. If I had a dropper loop on the end of this, let's imagine that I had a loop of line. I absolutely could loop this on, by putting it through and around. That doesn't take very long. If you ever do load it this way, you don't want this rubbing on the metal, the lead. You want to take this whole part of the knot and have mono on mono up there. So as it draws tight, it's drawing tighter on mono, and it has 2 lines drawing tighter on the metal. If you didn't do that, you would have single lines getting tighter and tighter on metal sharp that has a sharpness to it, even though it's lead. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so I would have this on. I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to swing it around and everything. But what I love about this, I got my it's about an arm's length, so it's about 4 about 5 feet long. There we go. Angler clip, snap. It is on. It is on. Now, you know, I could also then take this off and be like, dude, I want to fish with a diamond jig. Snap on the diamond jig. I want to fish with a bucktail. Boom, snap on a bucktail. I want to take this, and you know what? At the end of this is another. Now this one's not an angler clip, but it is a dual lock snap, and I could hook a bucktail on that. I could hook a soft paddle tail on that. Right now, I've got what I'd be classically fishing for fluke and for sea bass with is a spoon and a little teaser here that's dressed with like a little hoochie, and I'm gonna do a video on how to make these and everything. Hoochie and a skirt, a little mylar skirt, and then I would be baiting this with a gulp grub. This is like a 6/0 hook, so I could put a 5 or 6 inch gulp grub on this, or I would do my squid strip with a spearing on there. I could take this and put on some one of those scented baits that I was showing in another video. This makes for a wonderful little serving tray for scented baits, whether it's a paste or a squirt in like little tube thing. Anyway, what was I saying with this? Is that you remember how this is like all clipped on? Well, if I'm driving around, I'm going to take the lead weight off. And how am I storing this now? Let's say I want to leave it rigged. So that's hooked up there. And what I do is I just wrap this around the reel seat there. Well, not the reel seat, but around part of the reel. I'm gonna have to open this up, let some line out, and I don't hook it on the guide. I hook it on not the ceramic part, the round part. I hook it on one of these little parts here, so that I'm not going to break the ceramic. And then give it a little, click it in gear and give it a little tension. Look at this. I don't have a hook that's flying around that's gonna get me or get somebody else. This can go in a rod holder on the boat, totally fine. Had I left the lead on, I would have a lead bouncing around like this. I'm gonna snap a rod tip if I do that. So the lead comes off for if we're like traveling far. However, if I'm going from spot to spot, I don't hang this up. If I'm resetting my drift, I don't hang this up like this. What I do is I let that spoon go on the floor. I put the rod in the rod holder, and I take that lead weight, that big heavy lead weight, and it's not going to be with the rod. I could just put it in a cup holder. I put it in another rod holder. I set it on the ground. I put it somewhere where it's not going to bounce around as I take the boat and reset the drift. That's not a long trip. So I want to be able to pick the rod up, drop the lead in the water, and fish right away. So that's a quicker way of doing that. So, all right, so what do we talk about? We talked about talked a bit about the rod, a bit about the reel. Let's see, the reels are for these conventional ones. This is a Penn Warfare or a Penn Rival, level down from the Warfare, but totally fine. Everything gets rinsed with fresh water. All the rigs, all this gets sprayed down with fresh water. Spray the hose, take the hose, spray right into every nook and cranny. Every now and then hit it with some lubricant, especially this part, that worm gear right there. You want to get like one quick hit of WD-40 or something like that in there, a penetrating oil, so that salt doesn't build up in there and it moves back and forth freely. Okay, the one other thing is, how do I travel when I don't have like a 3-way rig, but I've got maybe a high-low rig? This is like a safety thing. So let me find a high-low rig here. These are all fine or whatever. They don't have to be anything special. Oh man, these are from forever ago. I haven't fished with these in, I can tell just based on the bag and the way I tied these and all. They're all fine. They're all fishable. Same thing. I got a barrel swivel at the top instead of a 3-way. I clip that on and I'm ready to fish once I bait the hooks. Try not to make too many knots or else you're going to be watching me undo knots. Okay, so I got my high and I got my low. Now they are long enough, far enough apart. This is about 18 inches and each one's hanging off about 6 inches or so. So they are long enough that if I hook them together, they're far enough apart that now when I pull tight, since this was about 18 inches or so, it makes up for the 6 inches and 6 inches. There's only about a foot distance between them. Now, what I can do is, now I've got a lead or whatever, and I can take that, that bottom part with lead. Same thing. Got the lead on the bottom. This one doesn't have a dropper on the bottom. Okay, good. Anyway, this one I tied wrong. But anyway, I would have that lead. If I'm traveling short distance, I put that in a cup holder or something like that. If I'm traveling a long distance, That's where